Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Spilled. We are your hosts, Kendall
and Delaney.
And we are very excited to be spilling history's hottest gossip with you today. As a reminder, we do publish every other Tuesday. Woo!
Woo! Also, we want to thank everybody again for the engagement in these early days. It means so much to us to have you guys reaching out and engaging with the podcast. Also, shout out to Kendall, new on socials, guys. Make sure you check out our TikTok. It's at Spilled History. Kendall got quite bold on our TikTok, and I'm definitely enjoying it. Seeing a Gen Z slash millennial.
Oh my god, the M word. Guys, she called me millennial. I'm cussed, so I appeal to both audiences. Thank you very much.
Right, guys. But yeah, make sure you tune in to see that. It's pretty entertaining.
I'm trying my best. If nothing else, please engage so we can hire a social media manager or something like that. You know, if anyone wants an internship, I will mentor you, twist my arm. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about sainthood in the medieval Catholic Church. We're going to be talking about virgins. We're going to be talking about torture. And we're going to peel back the curtain on the reality of four of the most dramatic saints in Catholicism.
Yes.
Not sure if you guys are ready for this. And just a little disclaimer, shit gets crazy at the end. So make sure you stick around for the whole episode or you will very sorely be mistaken. I do want to give everyone a trigger warning, a content warning. We will be talking about sexual coercion, sexual assault, and rape today. If these are topics that you do not feel comfortable listening to, you know yourself best, and we invite you to skip this episode, listen to an old one, or tune in 2 weeks on Tuesday for the next episode. So you know yourself best and make the right decision for you. But otherwise, let's get into it, Delaney.
All right, so like we said, we're talking the medieval Catholic Church, okay? Think 3rd to about the 13th century. So this spans from the early Roman Empire, 3rd to 5th century. You know, think Diocletian, Constantine, Theodosius I. These are all big names in Catholicism and Christianity. 5th through 10th century, that's when we get our post-Rome chaos, our Frankish kings, Charlemagne trying to partner with the church and monarchy. And then once we get the 11th through 13th, that's when we get our rise of papal power, our popes. Pope Gregory VII, who was enforcing that clerical celibacy, which is very important to today's episode. These are the foundations that the medieval Catholic Church began to build off of when it came to virginity. And then, of course, Pope Innocent going into the 13th century.
Sounds like in terms of the factors shaping society, the church was the premier influence on society, culture, lawmaking, government.
Yeah, the church was kind of the center of social life, center of communities at this point in time. And the Pope kind of had final say, especially when it came to certain, social standards, rules, regulations, and especially when it came to how women were supposed to act. The church absolutely loved to put their, their input on the guidelines and the rules that they would like women to follow to reach the purest state that they could.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I think I spend most of my time as a woman thinking about how I can best be pure. So right. I'm really excited to learn today.
I know. I feel like that's exactly, I feel like it's in our DNA, right? It's in our genetics.
Right.
We're born trying to learn how do I become more pure? How do I cook? How do I clean? How I need to fill this feminine desire. Yeah, 100%.
Honestly, brilliant transition. Can you, for everyone, define sainthood? What is sainthood for men? What is it for women? Where does this pureness come in?
Yeah, shockingly, as shocking as it is slightly different between men and women. I know.
Big.
Yeah.
Shut up. Double standard?
Yeah. Isn't it
in
crazy?
History?
Yeah.
In medieval Catholic history?
In the church.
My God. You guys, I don't know if you can handle this.
Okay, so in general, sainthood is the official recognition by the Catholic Church for somebody that lived and or died in a way that exemplified their holiness and they are now in heaven. So that is kind of a...
So they just did a good job.
They made it, right? Now, saints are venerated. That's kind of an important part. They are not... People don't worship to them like they would a god. They kind of pray and worship through them. So every saint has their kind of specific needs. Think how the Egyptians had their sun god, their moon god, their water god. Again, these are not gods. People worship through, not to. But it was kind of that thing. They had, certain saints for the blind, certain saints for the hungry, and et cetera, et cetera.
How about, is there a saint for revolve returns, or do I have to keep dropping those off of FedEx?
I honestly think, I think you could be that saint. Hear me out.
You're so right. Oh my God.
Hear me
Well,
out.
hold on. What do I have to do?
First, well, you have to find a man. Well, he has to find
Damn.
you.
Sorry, guys. I don't know if you saw the knife in my back just then. Delaney saying, ooh, actually, first and hardest tasks for Kendall to achieve sainthood. Find a man. It's fine. My DMs are flooded, obviously.
Yeah. Okay, Kendall. So how would you become a saint, right? Everybody wants to know. We have our early saints. Those would be some of our virgin martyrs that we're going to be talking about today. Martyrs, martyrdom is essentially the act of dying in a typically pretty dramatic, painful, torturous way for their faith. And this is seen through many different religions, many different cultures, but usually in like a very gruesome public way. Now, another way you could earn your sainthood was by being chosen by local popularity. Now, this was before.
Okay, I would like that one.
Okay.
So scratch the violence. I think the popularity contest sounds better.
Okay, I agree, but I mean, the Pope did not agree with this. Coming into the 12th century, rules were changed a little bit, and the Pope had to approve your sainthood. They needed this candidate, mind you, a candidate for sainthood. They would need proof of this heroic virtue, kind of like they would need to walk in with a resume, essentially, of these like miracles they performed, or like a holy resume, essentially, of their lives. I need to become a saint, please and thank you. Kiss the ring, kiss some babies, Now, women, on the other hand, I mean, some people would say it was maybe simpler. You had to live the purest of pure lives, according to the leaders of the church at that time, which meant total celibate purity. Chaste.
Right. Yeah, no
virgin.
Comment?
No comment. What?
No comment.
Oh.
Delaney,
no, you
back
couldn't
again with the sound bite.
No, you couldn't comment, Kendall.
No, that is the whole point.
Obviously, we're talking about virgins, Kendall. Kendall, you're not listening to anything I've been saying. They're virgins. Oh gosh.
I don't even know how to segue that one.
For women, the typical track to sainthood, at least for the 4 that we were going to be discussing today, their lives were encapsulated with the idea of them being extremely virtuous women by any means, which meant that oftentimes a lot of their stories include them being sought after, sexually assaulted, beaten, taken by men, and in their refusal, they remain, their purity remains intact. So the idea was, as long as she refused, as long as she didn't want to, and maybe was killed in this process, earning her that martyrdom, dying, willing to die to remain a virgin, earned a lot of these women the sainthood. But today, guys, we're gonna unravel and unpack a lot of what we've been told.
Hold on. So essentially, one of the most important factors for a woman to achieve sainthood is for her to have that maintained purity. Mm-hmm. But, and I don't want to spoil anything, but if I'm understanding you correctly, she could technically not be a virgin by like the physical definition of it all, the literal scientific definition of it all, as long as her heart was in the right place and she wanted to stay pure.
Yeah, and like
it doesn't matter if a man did or did not respect her boundaries. That's ridiculous. I'm so sorry. Like, that's bullshit.
BS. No. And not only was it that, but it was also, as we see, again, going into the 12th century, as the Pope began to enforce stricter rules around the ideas of sainthood, it definitely became more speculative. So they would examine these lovely women publicly and to make sure certain things were intact, to prove their virginity. So yeah, later on they definitely did take extra steps to make sure.
Damn, you're talking about hymens, which by the way I was terrified of when I was in the
big red
school, high school. They were like, if you ride a horse or do gymnastics, your hymen could tear. And I was like,
they're like,
oh my God,
you're gonna lose your virginity at gymnastics on Wednesday, don't you understand? That's what I thought it meant.
You guys understand. I was in a rather traumatic bike accident where I ran a bike head first into a horse trailer at my grandmother's house. No, I slid right off that seat onto the bar. And I was so convinced that that was the day my hymen tore. Anywho, one thing we also, not to kill the vibe, but before we continue to kill the vibe for the rest of the episode, we do want to quickly disclaim the Catholic faith and the Christian faith and just really all faith. It means a lot to people. We don't want to seem like we're totally disparaging it. We do, however, have very cited sources about real historical figures that, you know, were associated with the Catholic Church. So today we're sharing that. Anything beyond that is a joke. It's for entertainment, and it shouldn't be reflective of our views on Catholicism or Christianity in general. So
remember, we're just unpacking the people who were running the medieval Catholic Church, not the religion itself. So make sure that that is the focus here, and we're not dragging anybody's religion or religious views whatsoever. We're retelling history the right way.
Delaney, where did this virginity thing come from? How did it gain so much popularity and relevance in the church in this time period?
I would say for its like major boom of popularity around these medieval times, we have church fathers like Jerome and Ambrose to thank, because honestly, they were the ones who created this ideal blueprint, which stated that virginity was the essential holiest female state. Remember, women didn't have positions within the church, so there was very limited satorial power that they could have within the religion themselves. So if they were devout, if they wanted to reach the highest, holiest female state, that would have been sainthood, and therefore virginity. And Jerome literally says, and I quote, "Marriage fills the earth, virginity fills paradise."
Yeah, and who was Jerome filling?
You following your own rules there, Jerome?
Look that up in JSTOR. Thank you.
He's been locked out of paradise. Virginity fills paradise. For slow.
She gets a mic in her hand and she just goes absolutely crazy.
Oh, yeah, I'm Bruno.
Well, I think it's about time that we dive into these virgin saints, which, by the way, kind of love the fact that like virgin used to be like a cool thing to be, you know?
Really cool. That was like, guys, that was like the highest status you could possibly have.
No, she was a virgin. Well, look, we think everyone is cool no matter where you are.
Virginity rocks.
Yeah, no matter where you are in your sexual experience and journey in life. Great. Love that for you. I will say, we know I do a little Reddit preparation for these episodes. I like to see what the historical discourse is. You guys would not believe the rabbit holes I had to go down for this episode by searching medieval virgins, Reddit. Yeah, the virgin side of Reddit, a little interesting. I found some weird things in there,
maybe
guys.
We stop there with the virgin Reddit. Kendall's been complaining about viruses on her phone lately too. I don't know if that's also
guys. There's hot singles looking to meet me nearby. And they're virgins.
All right, so now that we've set the stage, we've gone through the context, the background, the ideas of sainthood. Now we're going to actually meet the four lovely saints that are the stars of today's episode.
Bring them out.
Bring them out. All right, first up, we've got Saint Agnes of Rome. Around 304 Common Era, Agnes was about 12, 13 years old, and she was suffering under Diocletian's persecution, okay? She had
Who was he persecuting?
Her. She had refused marriage proposals. She told men that she was already betrothed. Right? I'm like, sit down, please. Her. She told men she was, and I quote, she said, "Girl, I got a man, and his name is Christ. Go back up." And I got huh. Saint Agnes, ra, Roma, ro.
Oh my God.
I'm a virgin. Somebody needs to get me into like scatting. Like I think I found my calling.
There is such an age gap right now culturally in what you're doing and what I'm understanding the takeaway is here. That you kids need to get off TikTok.
She said, I'm married. I'm married and his name is Jesus. Yahweh, if you must. Whoa. That was such a good reference. Guys, if anybody understands his real name was Yahweh, please.
I don't get it. I'm so sorry. Someone's going to think that's funny.
Of course, hopefully.
I'll keep it in.
Okay, I'm sorry, because now the story gets really bad with St. Agnes, and now we're all, like, really hyped up, and this is where... I don't even want to say this now. All right.
Very bad news, guys.
Bad news. She's stripped publicly and sent to a brothel. She's like 13. Hey, bad news, guys. Diocletian strips her down, sent her to a brothel to shame her. It was medieval times. What could you do? You know, we used to discipline kids back then.
What can we say about it? This is literally
borderline
not appropriate.
Not appropriate at all. Woo. Okay, so it's kind of hard. We have to calm ourselves down.
She was 12 or 13. Oh,
she was 12 or 13. We're talking about a young girl here. And so after refusing these marriage proposals, again, reminding the men asking her that she was already betrothed. You know, she was already married to the man up there, upstairs. And so for this, because of her refusals of these proposals, Diocletian says, aha, I know how to punish her. Strip her naked, send her to a brothel, and publicly shame her. This young, poor girl.
That's honestly so terrifying. Like, real talk, she's 12 or 13. She's just barely going through puberty. A brothel. I think we all can understand what happens at brothels. She's naked publicly in a time where... like, yes, nudity in a sense was more commonplace because houses were much smaller, families were living all in one room, that type of thing. But the idea of like sexualizing a woman was super taboo. And so she was publicly stripped and sent there. Then what happened?
Well, so the whole idea was to publicly shame her, you know, throw tomatoes, try to touch her. And again, she was sent to this brothel so she could essentially lose that purity. Diocletian was somewhat removing the choice from her to choose her virginity, to choose to remain a chaste woman. He said, no, you must enter society. You must, you know, become a wife. And so sending her to this brothel was giving her no choice. It was basically saying, okay, well, your virginity is going to be taken no matter what. You're not going to be pure when you leave this brothel anymore. So you can marry whoever and you know, things will go my way. Things did not go his way. However, allegedly she's in this brothel, and by the grace of God, no one could touch her. This is what earned her that sainthood. She survives these numerous methods of torture post this, and eventually is beheaded for, again, still refusing to go through with an arranged marriage.
Wait, can you go a little bit into like who Diocletian was to her and like how she popped up on his radar?
I mean that would just be, she was a young lady. I mean, she was going out into society. She would have had, she was 12. That would have been her coming out to society, and she was probably an elite woman, St. Agnes. She was in Rome, so she was probably an elite, and therefore she would have been presented to the emperor at the age of 13. She would have been presented, you know, like her coming out to society type of thing. And then a marriage would be arranged, and a woman had no right to refuse a marriage, an arranged marriage. Like a marriage herself, she could refuse as long as her father agreed that she could, you know. But at this point, you were, you know, most of these marriage negotiations, if they were political or tactical, they went through the men of the family. So, you know, the fathers, the men would arrange these marriages, and if she defied that, you know, who was she to do that? So yeah, she would be definitely punished and persecuted.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much. That clears things up. So why was she sainted? Like, out of all the women that I'm sure had to go through similar struggles?
The main reason that St. Agnes became a saint was because of her pretty notorious unwavering commitment to chastity and to her faith. In the end, she becomes a martyr. She dies after beheading, again, after being tortured and in the face of public humiliation as a young girl. She still stayed true to her faith, stayed true to her values, and for this reason, she's the patron saint of the girls, of chastity, and of rape survivors. So she was the first one that we wanted to bring up today. And reveal the truth of her story that many people like to sugarcoat and or pray to her and bring her up, but have no clue, you know, how she earned that sainthood or the origin behind it.
Yeah, wow. I feel like it's almost a more powerful symbol in idol, given that once you kind of peel back and understand how committed she was to chastity, how committed she was to her own stances and morals and boundaries. Like, she stands for girls, chastity, rape survivors because she was those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it is very dulled down. Like, my knowledge of her is very insignificant compared to the story so far here.
Yeah, 100%. Like I mean, guys, this like young girl was willing to die. I mean, they definitely, I think we can assume they had a different idea of death. I think death was a little more normal to them, a little more regular to them in medieval times. However, that doesn't make it any easier and or less scary, less mortifying.
Again, she is 12 or 13. Like, for a girl, not even a young woman, like a girl to have that much ambition and boundaries and what's the right word for this? Conviction. It's impressive, and it's unfortunate that her sainthood was a result of the conditions that she was put through, but I think it's a really great place to start.
And again, it's what our podcast stands for, guys. We're highlighting the truth and the stories and these women who were defiant. They stood for what they believed in and were even willing to die for it. All right, so now that we've wrapped up St. Agnes, next on our list is St. Cecilia. Now, she was also located in Rome around the 3rd century, and she is known as the patron saint of music.
And you best believe the next time I'm on a dance floor and there is some wannabe DJ in Brooklyn playing some house music, I will be praying through St. Cecilia that they play Down on Me by Jeremiah on that dance floor right then and there.
Hey.
Everyone needs to bust a little more ass these days, in my opinion. Speaking of busting, please tell us about her husband.
Well, what they were not busting was his nuts. Well, actually, okay, no, he wasn't busting anything. Firstly, because I want to add that Christianity was still illegal under Roman law at this point in time. It is 3rd century Rome, okay? St. Cecilia was venerated as a Catholic saint, Orthodox Church, and the Christian Church as well. So in this time in Rome, Christianity is illegal, and she even convinces her husband to take a vow of celibacy with her.
Period. She said, I'm not in the mood, and I'm not going to be in the mood. And no, don't ever think I'm going to be in the mood. Because I got one, and he's waiting for me.
The Golden Gates. She said, Golden Gates who? Now, from a young age, apparently St. Cecilia had made this vow of virginity where she, very similar to St. Agnes, pledged herself to God rather than any other man. And this was a very serious vow. And so I also want to add that kind of in Christian and early Catholic tradition for women, from the female point of view, when they chose their own path of virginity, it was more so of a form of kind of resistance. It was a way for them to kind of reclaim this authority over their bodies in a very...
Hell yeah.
In the patriarchy, you know?
Hell yeah. I mean, I think it should still be like that. I'm not going to comment on sex, all this stuff, modern day sex, but I do think that celibacy is becoming a more modern trend again, as women are realizing that like they have way more choice, and we are kind of destigmatizing it. It almost feels like this bell curve of like in the 90s, oh my God forbid you were a virgin. Whereas now I think women are understanding that like sex means something different to them than it does for men a lot of the time, and like being celibate or practicing celibacy in any sort of like duration can be really healthy.
Now, despite her taking this vow of celibacy early in her life, she was forced into a marriage with a pagan man named Valerian. Now, paganism, Christianity, we know that those are oil and water. They do not mix. They did not like each other. Although at this time, he was quote unquote pagan at this time. And over time with her, they all converted to Christianity. Now,
she was persuasive.
Yeah, and on their wedding night, even more persuasive. On their wedding night, she's laying on the bed, with him, as they did, white sheet. And she looks at him and she says, Valerian, I just can't do this. And he says, why? Why, my wife? Why? She said, do you not see the angel standing across the room staring at us? I'm sorry. He's protecting my purity.
He deflates. He's like, fuck.
She's like,
This
I'm
is
sorry,
supposed
do
to be.
you not see the Lord Jesus Christ standing at the edge of our bed? She's apparently visited by some spirits, some angels, and apparently she told, and he's like, honey, I can't see the damn angels. I can't. She goes, oh my God, I get it. You're not baptized.
He's like, I'm rock hard right now.
I'm seeing red, okay? Hell if I see white right now. You know, she and she looks at him, she's like, babe, I know why you're not baptized. Duh. We haven't baptized you.
Anything. Dunk me in, bitch.
He's like, okay. Let's go right now. And so shockingly, Valerian is converted and even pledges to respect her vow of celibacy. I mean, now he fears the angels. Now he's like, damn, she was right. I've been baptized. I can see them. These are
this man has a nut in years. He's seeing things for sure.
Right. I mean, seriously. And if you look up like what biblical, there's many different renditions of the biblical angels, but they're mortifying. So when I was reading about this, when I was reading about Saint Cecilia, reading about their whole marriage room ordeal, honestly, some of the images frightening, scary. I'm in his pool. I mean, hell, I would have jumped into any bath, baptized myself to respect those medieval angels.
And we know men will do about anything to get laid, so I think that goes without saying.
Yeah. Valerian and Tiberius, her brother and her husband, became active Christians beside her. The Roman government saw Christianity as a point-blank threat. Again, we'll do an episode on Rome. We have to, and we'll go into Rome's whole battle with early Christianity, but they saw this as a kind of threat to their power structure because the Christians, number one, did not worship the Roman gods. That was seen as treason. Number two, they had these underground networks or secret rituals, or so the Roman government saw this as. And it also Christianity challenged the kind of traditional Roman ideas, virtues of family, of gender norms, pietas, virtue, etc. And so Cecilia's vow of virginity was a huge act of rebellion. And then there goes her brother and her husband joining along with her.
Okay, well, does seem to be a common theme between all of our lovely saints here. Just give it to me. How does she die?
It takes a few tries. They first tried to kind of smother her in a steam bath. She survives this. They then go on and they try to behead her. After 3 failed blows, and remember,
oh my God, someone's getting fired.
Right? Well, remember, guys, Roman law only allowed 3. So,
whoa.
And this
Wait,
wasn't.
if you survived 3,
no, they would leave you there.
You were good?
No, they left you there to slowly die. So yeah, no. When people hear that, they're like, oh, well, that's actually really nice. So like, if they didn't get your head off in 3 blows, you were good. No, you laid there half decapitated until you. It was honestly
why only 3?
Yeah, Roman law, man. Oh my gosh, if somebody asked a question about every Roman law, hell, they would have never become an empire. Right. But she survives for 3 days, laying on the ground, singing her hymns, and this is what gains her the patron sainthood of music. She lays on the ground for 3 days, singing hymns and praising to God as she was dying, and this was all again in the to preserve her virginity, to protect her faith, and remain a badass all this time later.
She's down there like, and so she head out to the dance floor and she slowly started popping that. Holy shit. That is crazy. I feel like that was a lot to process. Oh my God. So the Roman government is coming after her because she's a very loud practicing Catholic. Then she's, they tried to execute her with steam, which, by the way, is the sole reason I don't like the steam saunas.
Right.
Much prefer a dry heat. Anywho. Then they're like, that didn't work. We got to behead this bitch. Then they fail at that too. First of all, I think if a woman was in charge. Second, anyway, Then she doesn't die again because she's a badass. But so then she just sits there dying for 3 days. And oh my God. I mean,
It would be kind of, the image of it is somewhat haunting if you just think about, I don't know, walking through your village square and there's, you know,
oh
a
God,
half
let's go do a ghost
headless
tour.
woman.
Where was this?
Humming. La, la, la.
Nope, moving on. All right, who's the next one?
All right, so next on our list, they just get heavier as they go, guys. But again, we're doing Our Lady's justice here. We have Saint Margaret of Antioch. Now, this is 3rd to 4th century Rome. And Saint Margaret of Antioch is notorious for her rejection of the Roman prefect Olybrius's advances.
What is a Roman prefect?
A prefect was essentially a very high-ranking official within the Roman government. Now, there were different types of prefects, but you can kind of think governor, administrator, commander at times. It was kind of this jack of all trades, but essentially like a community leader within their government.
Got it.
Now, St. Margaret was the daughter of a pagan priest, but she secretly converts to Christianity and ends up being actually disowned by her father early in her life. She's raised by a Christian nurse and then decides to completely devote herself to God. This is when she begins her lifelong vow of virginity and spiritual purity.
Wait, so where does Olybrius come into play?
So again, he was Roman prefect or kind of Roman governor at the time of the province. And he sees Margaret. He becomes absolutely obsessed with her. All of our sources always talk about her beauty and how notorious she was for it. And obviously, as a Roman man would, he proposes marriage to her. Now, this marriage proposal came at somewhat of an ultimatum because he said, Margaret of Antioch, you can marry me, Olybrius, only if you renounce your faith to the Lord. I want to be the only man in your life. It's basically what he said, and I quote. Margaret says, oh, Olybrius, sweetheart, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I belong to Christ.
I got a man.
Right, I got a man. Same thing. All these women, loyal to their man. We cannot, nobody can argue with that, right? And she said, you can have my body, but you can't touch my soul. And,
wow.
Yep. And I quote Miss Margaret, and this was kind of the ultimate rejection of male authority and Roman power. This was like a very high-ranking official, and she was like, listen, I know you're going to do what you want, so you can have my body, but you can never have my soul. That's to Christ.
Damn.
Right? Goosebumps.
Did she actually say that?
No, she didn't. We don't have it quoted. No, but essentially she did in Latin in translation.
Those are the vibes. Those were like she kind of like exuded that.
Yes. So yes, somewhat.
Obviously, it was like in Latin, so
there's
she couldn't have said that.
Salve. Yeah. That's all I know. So as we can expect, Margaret rejecting Olybrius was not taken lightly. He gets absolutely furious. And again, finding out that she's a Christian and will renounce her faith, he orders a few things of her, okay? He sits down at a table. Number 1, I want her tortured. 2, imprisoned. 3, burn her. 4, scorch her. 5, rack her. Not even sure what racking is, but this is medieval times.
Oh, I'll tell you. I know what racking is.
Enlighten me.
We'll get into it later.
No, but seriously, on a real note, he orders parliamentarily orders her to be tortured, to be imprisoned, to be burned, scourged, and racked.
Guys, I don't want to have to keep bringing back every episode to the fact that men don't really handle rejection that well
at all.
But like the history is really writing this out for us. Goddamn.
Right. He's like, wait, what the heck? You won't marry me? Okay, fine. Torture her, imprison her, burn her, rack her, scorn her. And the best part is she survives all of this.
That is insane. What were these women made of?
Right.
Holy.
Oh, and you know what they would have answered? God. Because the entire time she was praising to her man and her man only, Jesus Christ, Lord and Savior. And so she just spends this entire time, and this is what earns her the martyrdom. Now, actually, this is where it gets interesting. It hasn't gotten interesting yet.
It's not interesting yet.
No, it's about to get real hot.
Should I define racking?
Really hot. Okay.
Oh.
This is probably the best part of her story. Again, medieval times, guys. Don't get mad at me. This is very as credible the information as I can possibly find about these women. Again, we're uncovering the
Sure,
stories
let's
that
just
were
get into
originally written. So she's alone in her prison cell, and a literal demon in the form of a dragon appears. And
No, of course.
right, and swallows her whole.
Right.
This is from her account.
No, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously. So inside the stomach, she's inside the belly, and she looks and she's like, I know what to do. She draws a sign of a cross on the inside of the stomach of this demon dragon.
Sure. I mean, my first thought too.
Right. And remember, she's in her prison cell. So this demon had infiltrated the prison.
In the dragon.
In the cell.
There's layers.
It's like the grandma book, where she like eats all the stuff and she keeps going. Anyway. And this dragon now explodes from the power of Christ. There's a cross on inside its belly. It explodes and expels her from its body, leaving her unharmed. And now she is broken out of prison.
That girl is on fire.
Guys, it's probably like the most iconic prison jailbreak of all time. I mean, dragon appears, swallows her whole. She draws a power of Christ, expels her from the stomach of this dragon, freeing her from her prison.
There's like 6 dudes in Alcatraz in the 30s being like, where the fuck can we get a dragon?
My sleep paralysis demon just stares at me, bro.
No, it's not fair. How yours get?
He won't take me anywhere.
Just swallow.
But obviously, Olybrius is now even more infuriated because he's, what the hell? This is another form of rejection. He's now been rejected by like the Lord himself and a dragon. So he cracks down and orders her to be beheaded.
At what point do you just consider converting when like he is like, no, you are wrong in your Christianity? She defies death like 6 times involving a dragon.
Right.
And he still is like, no, you're actually still wrong.
You're still wrong. Well, of course she was. She was a woman. So he has her beheaded. And even within her death, she was remembered and honored for her unshakable faith, her commitment to her refusal to submit to both this idea of political and sexual power, and also for her miraculous physical endurance. We just have to applaud the lady here. She survived about 8 near-death experiences, all at the hand of one man, all because she said, I won't marry you, guys. Kendall's right.
And because she was rejecting paganism, right?
Well, it was a mixture of both. It was a combination of the fact that she, he said, I will marry you if you renounce your faith. And she was like, I can do that, but I'm not renouncing my faith. Like, I could marry you, but in no way in hell am I going to renounce my faith. So it was more so, yes, he was persecuting her by law because she was a Christian. However, no, his personal persecution of her was because she rejected him.
Wow. Okay. And what do I pray for her for?
Saint Margaret is the patron saint of pregnant women because she was inside the dragon belly, kind of thing, right? Nurses, midwives, and women in labor. She's often depicted in relics and pictures with a dragon at her feet, or kind of bursting out of somebody's belly holding a cross. So it's kind of, she's the one that you pray for if you're pregnant, for fertility, and also for any miscarriages or losses of children. Another fun fact I'll add lastly about her, she was actually one of the 3 virgin martyr saints who spoke to Joan of Arc during her visions. Saint Margaret is one of the ones that she notoriously brings up, Joan of Arc, when saying that she gained her strength from some of these iconic sainted women.
I'm really just trying to wrap my head around this dragon thing.
Medieval times love dragons, and who are we to say that they didn't exist? As a historian,
who are we to say that they didn't? Honestly, I
think they did.
Show me a good conspiracy theory and I'll jump right in. Also, guys, we're being silly and goofy about all the religious stuff. Please just take it with a grain of salt. Most of this podcast is meant to be entertaining, we're talking about sexual assault and religion here, so we're trying to bring a little levity to it. I'm not going to ask you not to take offense to it, but I deeply hope we're not offending anyone with how frivolous we're talking about some of these things. Yeah, anyway.
All right, for our fourth and final saint, we're going to be going into the life of Saint Margaret of Cortona. Saint Margaret is the patron of single mothers, penitents, and the rejected. She was alive during the 12th through the early 13th centuries, and this is in Tuscany, Italy. Now, in Margaret's early life, she was born into a poor family, and at 17, she ran away from home with a nobleman. They never got married, but they lived together for 9 years and had a son. Now, keep in mind, this is a very rejected idea. Like, this unmarried young woman ran away from home with a random nobleman. He never married her, and yet she still had a child with him. She apparently lives a very lavish lifestyle while married to him, but was never respected, was never treated right, and was sort of just kind of his puppet, his play toy, his puppy that followed him around, and yet he never respected enough to marry her.
Why didn't he marry her?
Easy answer, he was noble, she was poor.
Tale as old as time. Noble guy knocks up someone, doesn't commit because of hierarchy, social structures.
Yep. And
okay.
Exactly. Eventually, this douche who never decided to marry her but had a child with her was murdered. So sad. And apparently, according to legend, his dog actually leads her to the body. She stands, over it, grieving and ashamed. Aww. And she decides then and there to give up everything, take her shoes off, and go on a barefoot pilgrimage to Cortona. Now, I want you to remember her own family rejected her again for the second time now. And this leaves her with nowhere else to turn other than to the Franciscan friars. They take her in, and she then spends 3 years with them doing public acts of penance. And shortly after this, she decides to join the Third Order of St. Francis. She takes a vow of chastity. She begins to fast. She wears rags, begins caring for the sick, the poor, begins kind of building up this holy resume, but all in the name of repentance. She wanted to change her life for the better.
So she was repenting and was rejected by her family for this child out of wedlock.
Well, it was mainly the fact she ran away from home. She didn't help her family grow. That was with these poor families. Every child was needed to keep the family running, to care for the siblings, to work for the family business, farming, whatever it was. And her just leaving and abandoning home to go off with this nobleman, live a very lavish lifestyle, and leave her poor family behind. Again, also, daughters were meant to bring wealth to the family a lot of the time. If they were poor, if they had a beautiful daughter, they could maybe marry her off potentially. If this noble family, if he loved her enough and was okay with dropping the noble titles, then, that daughter could bring the family wealth. Every child was a new opportunity for families in this time, whether that was they would work, they would bring them money, bring them income, or bring them social status. So by her leaving at the ripe age of 17, that cut all of those opportunities off for her and her family. And second time she comes around, she says, I'm a changed person. I'm on this pilgrimage. They reject her once again.
Got it. Okay. And so at this point now, she's finding her faith. It sounds like she's kind of rejecting her worldly possessions and her vanity and all these things that the traditional church rejects.
Yeah, she even goes on to found a hospital and a lay woman's group she calls Le Provelle. Hey, that was pretty good. Le Provelle. She has visions of Christ. She has these spiritual gifts. And through this 3-year transformation, she kind of reclaims herself as a woman. She takes a vow of chastity and decides to commit her life to Christ. She then makes some pretty bold actions. She begins calling out the corrupt clergy, calling out local elites. She was not quiet when she saw corruption. This woman saw it. She called it out. And again, this is a woman. This is medieval times, okay? This is
the Catholic Church, baby. It is corrupt.
It is corrupt, okay? And she was not afraid to speak her mind about it. With all of this, she earns the title the Magdalene of the Franciscans. She passes away in 1297, and she was canonized in 1728. So, I mean, centuries after her death. And what's kind of cool is that her shrine that they ended up putting up in Cortona becomes a pilgrimage site. Her son later becomes a Franciscan friar himself. And the whole motive of her story is that although she wasn't a virgin, she had her child before she was converted. You know, all this, she had a completely different life. And we know this now in modern day that opportunities are endless. Single mothers, you know, whatever you go through in life, there's always hope. Things can change. But back then, for a woman in her time, for a poor woman, that didn't seem possible. It didn't seem like you could 360 your life and make something better out of it with the cards you were dealt. And that's exactly what she did. Her redemption was messy, but it was real. And that's exactly what the church tried to cover up. And it's what we were here today to uncover.
Honestly, couldn't have said it better myself. That's really interesting. Four really, really juicy, very dramatic stories here among these women.
I know. I mean, seriously, these are some of the most crazy stories I feel like we've covered on this podcast thus far. However, I told you at the beginning this was a hot and heavy episode, right? And sadly, guys, we have yet to get to the actual heat of today's episode because half of what I just told you, or the church told you, isn't even true.
Mic drop.
For example, let's go back to St. Lucy of Syracuse. Now again, pure virgin martyr that the church did not lie about. However, most of the sources that we have date from decades or centuries after her death, which basically means the church likely built her up, built her story as a model, ideal virgin to play this idea of virgin martyrdom. Guys, she was this whole idea of her being a saint was built decades after the story of her life. She wasn't
I'm
just
catching on now. I'm catching on now. So basically, these women lived these extraordinary lives, which I'm sure they did in real life, but the church took that, ran with it, modeled it after their ideals, guys, and have created stories, basically.
Guys, we actually don't even have evidence that St. Margaret of Antioch ever existed. It's actually more likely from our sources she was completely fictional and invented to explain this dramatic Christian imagery or embody these kind of idealistic themes in Christianity. That's more realistic than the idea that a dragon swallowed her. And dragons aren't even present in the earliest Christian writings, guys. I mean, the church didn't even do their research. They got it wrong.
You're telling me a dragon isn't even real? What the hell? I feel I don't know about you guys, but I feel buttered up. I was just taken out to a nice long dinner, 4 courses, 4 different women, these stories. And then also you can sit here at minute whatever we're at right now. I can't tell. We've been recording for 2 hours, but minute something. And you sit here and tell me that the gossip was actually all along that it's not even true.
As gossip normally is, guys.
Not true.
As gossip normally is. The church was obsessed with canonizing an ideal, not a real person, guys. And again, I don't want to come at the medieval Catholic Church here, but I'm coming at the medieval Catholic Church. Again, it's not about the religion. It was the people within the church at this time. St. Margaret of Cortona. Guys, she was not a virgin, nor was she a martyr, yet the church reshaped her story and reshaped her into this holy figure by focusing only on the end and second half of her life. Now, granted, I still want to give appreciation to the fact she completely turned her life around for the better. However, the church decided to erase 90% of the messy and complex details of her life that actually made her powerful, that I think actually that actually earned her the sainthood she ended up getting. The main idea here is that these saints weren't, the idea isn't that these saints weren't real or the saints didn't earn their sainthood. The idea is that the church used them as PR, as advertisement, as ways to get their thoughts and their rules across to people. The church made sure that their stories hit all the right markets and that it wasn't just about who they are, guys. It was about who the church decided to make them into.
I think it's also so powerful too, because so much of that institution then has crafted even our society today. I mean, I think any woman listening to this, and I would hope almost all of the men listening to this, understands the extreme double standards women are still experiencing when it comes to perceived sensualness or sexuality, or even just that, like, you know, liberation of sex for women. All of that was very, very mindfully curated by many factors, but in this episode, the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm. And remember the very start of the episode, Kendall asked me, she was like, okay, what does it mean to be a virgin saint? Explain that to me.
What does it mean to be a virgin? Period. Asking for a friend.
Well, honestly, guys, I can answer now truthfully, finally, that I'm not holding this big secret the whole time.
I've been duped and bamboozled.
The true answer for what does it mean to truly be a virgin saint, it's whatever the church wanted it to mean. And that kind of sums up the medieval Catholic Church at that point in time, 3rd to 13th centuries, guys, for you. Virginity became this kind of symbolic factor. Martyrdom became the proof. And then sainthood became the stage that they hit at that final climax, let's say. It was bad.
You had to do it.
I had to.
And look, as long as we're making up stories about being virgins.
I'm a virgin. Our voices are so similar, they won't even know who said it. Okay, Kendall. Now that all of the true tea has been spilled, out of everything we talked about today, I'm extremely curious at the end of today's episode, what would be your dinner party takeaway?
I mean, I feel like I was just blindfolded and spun around, but I
St. Agnes would agree.
I feel like I just got racked. My dinner party takeaway is that dragons are not real, and St. Margaret of Antioch also might not be real, and all of these different religious idols also might not be real. No, I'm being dramatic, but my dinner party takeaway is absolutely just like increasing the scrutiny, I guess, on like religious figures and like kind of understanding the motives behind it. The church has to communicate and inspire in different ways, and I think that they've been creative, they've been manipulative, they've been innovative, and ultimately one of the best marketing campaigns that's lasted centuries. So I think ultimately it's just a little bit more information on not necessarily the fact that they curated these stories, but kind of that like under the hood of like why. I guess it just like adds a layer of depth onto the conversation, that in order to incentivize piety, purity, all of these things, it was easier for them to craft stories that people really looked up to, they prayed to, that Joan of Arc spoke through.
That's today's episode, guys. Let us know what you think on any of our socials. Make sure you guys go and check them out. We are so excited to see you guys in our next episode, which will be
next Tuesday.
Woo!
Mark it in the calendars, guys. Thanks for spending your time with us. Peace out.
Peace.